Projects are typically broken down into manageable, sequential phases of work activities. These project phases, taken together, are referred to as the project life cycle. Each project phase has a time frame and a predetermined outcome, such as specific deliverables, a milestone, or intermediate results. A project life cycle may have 4 or 5 phases, which can vary because the life cycle is unique and customized to meet the needs of specific projects or the organization as a whole. The project life cycle is marked by the beginning and end of the project. At the startup, the project's general scope and timing are determined. In the next phase, detailed planning occurs, followed by another phase of actual project work activities and the monitoring of those activities. In the final phase, project closing activities occur. A project life cycle can be predictive, in which the deliverables are defined at the initiation of the project and changes are tightly managed, or adaptive, where the scope and deliverables are developed during multiple iterations. Though projects differ in nature, size, and complexity, they display certain common characteristics. At the beginning of the project, the cost and staffing levels are quite low. They reach the peak once the work is carried out and drop rapidly upon project completion. The influences, uncertainties, and risk involved with stakeholders are high at the project start and diminish over the life of the project. A generic life cycle for a project includes starting or initiating the project, organizing, planning, and preparing, carrying out or performing the project work and monitoring the project work, and closing the project out. At the start of a project, risk and uncertainty are at a high level and decrease gradually throughout the project life cycle. The ability to influence the project and its objectives are high at the beginning of the project and decrease over time. That means that the cost of changes to the project start low and significantly increase over time. At the beginning of each phase, it is a good practice to verify and validate the former assumptions made to the project, analyze risk, and explain in detail the processes required to achieve a phase's deliverables. After the key deliverables of a particular phase are produced, a review at the end of the phase is necessary to ensure completeness and acceptance. Even though this method signifies the start of the subsequent phase, a phase can be closed or the project terminated when huge risks are involved for the project or when the objectives are no longer required. A project can be divided into phases that represent the activities that produce one or more deliverables. Project phases are usually performed sequentially, but they can overlap. The output of one phase is often the handoff or input to the next phase. Phases facilitate management, planning, and control as the work is represented in smaller, more focused segments. Some organizations have standard phases across all projects. Projects that have multiple phases will generally follow a sequential process that ensures greater control over the project and aids in achieving the desired product, service, or result. Sometimes multi-phased projects will have more than one phase-to-phase relationship occurring during the life cycle of the project. In such cases, factors such as the level of control, effectiveness, and the degree of uncertainty decide the relationship that can be applied between phases. Based on these factors, both types of relationships can be applied between different phases of a project. Here we have sequential relationships. They are contained in consecutive phases that start only when the previous phase is complete. This relationship reduces the level of uncertainty, which may eliminate the option for shortening a project's schedule. Overlapping relationships contain phases that start prior to the previous phase ending. This relationship increases the level of risk and may cause rework if something from the previous phase directly affects the next phase. Progressive elaboration is commonly referred to as rolling wave planning. It is a method used to arrange project life cycle phases in a specific way to allow for progressive elaboration, in which successive layers of detail are added to the plans as the project progresses. Usually, the sequence of the phases defined by most project life cycles involve some type of handoff or deliverable. Most often, deliverables from one phase are approved before work begins on the next phase. For example, design specifications are approved and handed off before the design phase begins. However, a subsequent phase may begin before approval is gained on the deliverables of a previous phase if the risks are considered acceptable. Progressive elaboration helps the project management team plan their work to a greater level of detail as the project progresses. Predictive life cycles determine the project scope, time, and cost as early in the project as possible. This is a preferred cycle to use when project outcomes are well understood and known, such as enhancements to an established product. Predictive cycles are very formal and enable the project team to stay focused on each phase of the project before having to move forward to the next phase. Iterative and incremental life cycles include project phases that are intentionally placed and repeated as the team's understanding of the deliverables is developed and understood. In most cases, the team will work with a high-level vision because the deliverables will be defined up front and developed with more detail and characteristics as the project moves through each phase. This cycle can be helpful in environments that are uncertain and undefined. For example, when developing a brand new product, the high-level vision for the project exists, but all the details such as limitations, size, and functions will be discovered and identified as each phase is completed. This life cycle is also beneficial when managing a changing objective and scope, or when partial delivery of the objectives provides value. This cycle is like an extension of or corollary of the overlapping relationship, but in this case, the phase repeats itself multiple times. Adaptive life cycles, also referred to as change-driven or agile methods, work well in environments with high levels of change and ongoing stakeholder involvement in a project. This is similar to iterative and incremental life cycles, but at a much more rapid pace. It is used in a highly flexible, interactive, adaptive organization where project outcomes are realized while the project work is being completed and not at the beginning of the project. This method is used when dealing with a rapidly changing environment. Scope and requirements are difficult to define in advance, and small incremental deliverables have value to the stakeholders. Agile project management refers to taking an iterative approach to managing a project throughout its life cycle. It allows the project manager to continually re-evaluate progress, development, and priorities and make adjustments as needed. It is a fluid, quick-paced, dynamic process that emphasizes face-to-face communication. Now that we've looked at how project management fits into an organization's environment and structure, think about several questions. Why is it important for a project to conform to an organization's culture? And when thinking about your next project, why is it important to consider the project management concepts presented in this lesson?